לב טהור, ברא לי אלוהים, ורוח נכון, חדש בקרבי. I am Father Agapetos. Learn how Jesus prayed the Psalms.
Dwelling you water, the hills are drinks its fill of your gift.
So good evening, we're back together for continuing our adventure with the second book of the Psalms. And we're now in Psalm 49. And it's a very simple theme tonight. But the simple theme allows the poet to develop his poetry techniques, and we're going to see that as we go through this Psalm 49 and get back this beginning of the Paschal time with this great presence of Christ in the Psalms. I remind you that Jesus used the Psalms for his prayers. There's no doubt about it. And so every psalm, we can read it with Jesus and in his perspective. So let us go immediately into our Psalm 49. And it has a superscription which is quite close to what we have had in the past Psalms. Let's just listen to it.
למנצח, לבני קורח מזמור.
Okay. So, Lemneatseach, I translate it to him who grants victory, right? It's to the leader. You can see the letter of Korah. And Livnei Korach is sons of Korach. And then Mismor, that's one name for the Psalms, right? It's a song of poetry, right? So it's just a simple title. And then I put his title for the whole psalm. On the right side you see, humans cannot save themselves. No one is to dismiss this. It's a psalm which is trying to put into our hearts that humans cannot save themselves. And in no way. And we have different little groups inside this psalm, and I think the best is just to discover group by group and look at its. This is so important when you read a psalm, to be able to divide it into parts and to let each part speak. Take time to let it speak and not jump from beginning to end of the psalm. And so here we are. It starts, the superscription is verse 1, and so in the Hebrew, the psalm starts with verse 2. So let us listen now to verse 2.
שמעו זאת כל העמים, האזינו כל יושבי חלד.
שמעו זאת כל העמים. So, listen to zot, to this. Zot is really, I really have something to tell you. Listen, hear what I have to tell you. And all you nations, all you peoples, right? This psalm is directly addressed not to simply the chosen people of Israel, but as a universal address. And the theme is the universal condition in which we, mankind, find ourselves. And then the second line we heard, which is Azinu kol yoshvei chaled. So give ear, very close to here. All you who are set in a limited lifetime. Chaled is not the strong word for life. It's one for earthly life. And this is what we see in, it's a rare word, if we see in the right side, limited lifetime, Haled, it's 4 out of 5 occurrences in the Old Testament are in the Psalms. And Haled is very close to rust, to earthly rust, right? It's rusty life that can rust. That's the idea. You are set in a life that can rust. And here we have a psalm. We're going to have another word which is going to come up in verse 9, which is vanity or vainly. And it has the same consonants as this Haled. Haled is Het, Lambda, Dalet, and Hadal is Het, Dalet, Lambda. And in Hebrew, and this is very different from English, is that a word is defined in its meaning by most often 3 consonants. But the order in which their consonants are, it's also sort of a declination, declining the the variety of meanings that can come out of that one word. And so a Jew is conscious that limited lifetime and rust and vanity, they're very close terms that basically are linked by roots. So we have in Psalm 18, which is the long psalm of David, deliver my life from the wicked by your sword, from men by your hand, O Lord, from those whose portion in life is mehaled, from, we could say, limited lifetime. And so it's this earthly dimension. And again in Psalm 39, verse 10, you have made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime, ve'haldi, is as nothing in your sight. And so this, you see this link in between lifetime and nothingness, lifetime and vanity. And still in Psalm, you see we only have 4 Psalms, so with today's Psalm, the 4th quote is all the times that we find this word in the Psalter. Psalm 89, which is the long psalm of the Messiah. Remember, O Lord, what the measure of life is. Ma haled. For what vanity you have created all the sons of men. So, realize, all you nations, this verse 2, hear and give ear about the frailty of your human condition. And this is addressed to all types of persons. So let's listen to it in Hebrew.
גם בני אדם, גם בני איש, יחד עשיר ואביון.
Okay. So, both sons of Adam and sons of Ish, sons of man, it's the 2 words for man which already appear in Genesis 1 and 2. Ish and Isha is man and woman in Genesis 2. And There are different interpretations of what are the sons of Adam and what are the sons of man. I think the best is simply to go always in studying the Bible to the first occurrence, right? So Adam appears in Genesis 1, 7 days of creation, and Ish appears, man in the garden. And so it's just different perspectives, and man has this plural identity immediately in the Bible, and both rich and poor together. Well, that's something much more familiar to us because we make the division in our society between rich and poor, and rich and poor together. I'm addressing all of you, right? And I'm also addressing you in, what did I put for verse 3? Oh, yes. No, it's really verse 4. I'm addressing you also with a plurality of means. And that's the next verse, which is verse 4. Let's listen to it.
פי ידבר חוכמות, והגות ליבי תבונות.
Okay. Hokmot, Tevunot. We see that in the Hebrew we have rhymes in poetry, like in other languages. And so the first line is, "My mouth shall speak wisdoms." And, it's really the word for wisdoms. I mean, out of my mouth I will bring you wisdom. And then we get the agut. And agut is very close, a word, to the word in Psalm 1, the man who meditates your law day and night. Yehigi. And here it's agut. It's this meditation. But here it's clearly meditation of the heart, libi, lev, libi is the heart. And then tevunot, and has inner understanding. Brings inner understanding. So I have sort of two forms, says the poet, of speaking out to you. And then I'm also going to see, what can come out, the result, is going to also be under two forms. And that's what we have in verse 5. Let us listen to it.
עטה למשל אוזני, אפתח בכינור חידתי.
Okay. Lemashal and hidati. Parable, a mashal, and a riddle. Hidati. And this again is a word which only appears one other time, as you see in the right column, in the Psalter, out of 17 times in the Bible, riddle, right? And so it's the beginning of Psalm 78. I will open my mouth to a parable, be mashal, or exactly. I will utter riddles, yehidot, from of old. And so it's really the announcement of, again, this plural approach to what the story is going to appear like. And so plurality of persons, plurality of means to communicate to them. And so now we're ready to go to what's the content of this wisdom, of these intuitions, this parable, of my riddle. And so here we get to the second part. And the second part goes from verse 6 to verse 13. And let's enter it with listening to verse 6.
למה אירע בי מרע, עוון עקבי יסובני?
Okay. Why, Lama, why should I fear in the days of evil, when I am encircled by iniquity at my heels? And so, why should I fear? And here it's this negative fear. It's not the positive fear of God, reverence for God. It's rather what diminishes this reverence for God. And and we're going to find fear again in the very last part of this psalm. It's right. Don't fall into this disruptive fear, even when there's evil, even when I'm encircled by iniquity at my heels. It's a very beautiful poetic expression, right? I'm attacked at my heels, and Jesus also speaks about the treason of Judas. Like one is attacking me at the heel, right? And so this is an expression. So do not fear evil, do not fear iniquity. And then we get what's behind evil and iniquity. And this psalm is really an identification of what do we have? Evil and iniquity with what we have in the next verse. Let's listen to the next verse.
הבוטחים על חילם וברוב עושרם יתהללו.
Okay. And so what do we have here? We have those that trust in their possessions and in the abundance of their wealth are praising. In other words, it's beautiful images here, so it's clear is that evil comes with those who trust in their possessions and who, with the abundance of their wealth, they're the ones who are praising. They're probably not praising God, or praising God like the Pharisee did in the parable of the Pharisee and the publican. And I praise you for that I'm so wealthy, that I have, that my possessions are so comforting. Right? And so that's where we're going to stay sort of in this theme during the whole psalm. Let us listen and beware of this danger that evil and iniquity have an identification with trusting in possessions, in being filled with praises because we have abundance of wealth. And it's very limited. And there we have verse 8, which gives us a new picture, right, of why it's evil and iniquity to trust in possessions, praise upon abundance. So let's listen to verse 8.
אך לא פדו יפדה איש, לא ייתן לאלוהים כופרו.
Okay, so ach in Hebrew means brother, and it's almost the same word as a word which has come a little further down. We'll hear, which is ach. So I don't even know how to pronounce them differently, but one is brother and the one is this is a single reality. So a brother cannot be a redeemer. And there's twice in Hebrew he cannot be a redeemer. He cannot redeem. He is no more than ish, than a man, right? And in other words, he can't pretend. His praises basically are vain, right? And the evil is turning away from the fact that making the error of seeing possessions and wealth as means that brings us closer to redemption. This really speaks of the world today, right? Where so many people sacrifice themselves so greatly for this, hoping to get closer to redemption through having possessions and wealth. He is no more than a man. And redemption, here it says something very important, is that redemption has nothing to do with the human identity. And maybe we forget that with Christ. Right? See, you're our Redeemer. It's really saying, you have the power of God. And you're not gifting us with something that only comes from man, even the best of men. And then we have a ransom given to Elohim can only be deficient. Right? There's no when we have the background of wealth and possessions and say, well, I'm going to be able to, we're always like that, we're always saying, I remember my friend who's in Ethiopia, right? He came and said, look, I can come and help you. You're dying of hunger and I have something to give to you, right? And the monk he met said, what I want you can't give to me. Yeah, so what do you want? And he said, I want a pure heart. You're not going to give it to me. And so that's that's sort of what's behind here, is that there's nothing to give on the part of human possessions, human wealth of any sort that will bring forth redemption. And so here we have a play. Wait, let me just look at what I wrote, right? Yeah, I wrote, the great error is to use wealth as a ransom for my life. And that's what this psalm is bringing out. Don't fall into that error. And I say for myself, I'm continually falling in that error, right? It's my human comfort which gives me more ability to help others in what's essential. Not so sure, right? And when we go through afflictions and sufferings and persecution, maybe we're helping more our neighbor than when we are reaching a new level of comfort. So we continue with verse 9. So let's read verse 9.
ויקר פדיון נפשם, וחדל לעולם.
Okay, so too precious is the redemption of their soul. Vanity is his offering in the face of eternity. In other words, the redemption of the soul is too precious, right? And for anyone to pretend that they can obtain it. And the offering that aims at eternity is vanity. And this is underlined with sort of the central verse of this part, which is verse 10. Let's listen to it.
וכי עוד לנצח לא יראה השחת, כי
Okay. Who would he live forever? Not see the pit. And so, what is going to change this future of ours? That we come to everlasting life and that we not be consigned to a pit. So, we're going forward in our poem, and verse 11 brings a new dimension.
יראה חכמים ימותו, יחד כסיל ובר יאבדו.
Okay, so truly, he sees the Hakamim, the wise men, die. And they perish united to the fool and the brutish. In other words, death is a limit which man, whether he be wise or a fool, is in the same way confronted with. And we are together in this great equality of all humanity in the face of death. And what happens with death, the end of this verse?
ועזבו לאחרים חילם.
And they leave their possessions to others. And so, here we have we cannot hold to possessions. This is repeated and trying to put it into our hearts. And then we have verse 12, which is, these verses are difficult to translate because there's a lot of very delicate relation between words in the Hebrew, and I struggled a lot with this translation.
קרבם בתמו לעולם.
Okay, let's go one. Their inner thoughts, right? What they have inside, right? Is where they abide for eternity. And here the idea, I think, is quite clear. It's the inner human thoughts, right, are where they abide, and they cannot get out of that for eternity. And it's repeated in the next line.
משכנותם לדור ודור.
Mishkenotam, their dwelling place, is from dor vador, from generation to generation. Is this trait of thoughts which they live with. Remember, the monks, the great work of the monks is to purify their thoughts, these inner thoughts, because they're going to lead nowhere. But what is done, for example, with inner thoughts?
קראו בשמותם עלי אדמות.
Okay. They give names to their lands. That's the way they think they're going to perpetuate, right? Their posterity, right? I'm going to have a land, and it's perfectly in this psalm again an example of vanity. And then we have the conclusion of this second part, which is with verse 13.
ואדם בעיקר בל ילין, נמשל כבהמות נדמו.
Okay. Thus Adam, in his preciousness, will not pass the night. His story fits parables on beasts that cease to be. So, his Adam, Ikar, preciousness, it's a word which expresses man has something which is very precious, which is very dear, right? But in the view of our human understanding, right? It's something that will not pass the night. It's something extremely transitory. The preciousness that we touch with our earthly understanding. And then his story fits parables on beasts that cease to be. I put parables because on the top we had, I incline my ear to a parable, to mashal. And here, his story fits parables on beasts. It's be moshel, on beasts that cease to be. And so it's they fit well the story of how limited is a beast in his life. So that's what the condition is of man, for all men. But in particular, it's condemned for those who put their trust in their possessions and their wealth, and in the sense that that's going to give them something of an edge to be redeemed, to enter into the world of eternity, of God's eternal presence. So this is what the psalmist has learned through his observations. Right? Then we come with verse 14. He's telling us, learn what I have learned. And so let's listen to verse 14.
זה דרכם כסל למו, ואחריהם בפיהם ירצו.
Okay, so this is their way, foolishness is theirs, and would the mouths of their posterity find pleasure speaking of them? So, what is he saying here? Look, this confusion in between human abundance and redemption, right, is foolishness. It's a way of life which is a dead end. And the next part of the verse is, those who are going to come after him, what are they going to think of those who have chosen such a transitory values? And then we have this little word which you've found a number of times in the Psalter before.
Selah.
Selah. Take a moment of meditation on this. Right? Realize that the foolishness of counting on human riches. If you are really looking for the good of your life. And what happens? Let's listen to the next verse.
כצאן לשאול שתו.
Okay, katzon, like sheep, right? They are appointed for Sheol.
מוות ירהם.
Death shepherds them.
וירדו בם ישרים לבוקר.
Okay, now this is a very difficult set of words to translate. I translate, those who take the appearance of upright in the morning shall go down. It's those who start the day with the idea, I'm going to be upright, but finally who divert to put their trust in possessions and abundance of this earth. And we saw that, that they won't pass the night, those who have chosen vanities with what they think is what they put their trust in. And so it's another way to say it. And we have the end of the verse.
וצורם לבלות שאול.
Okay. And their princely residence. No, there's just...
זבול לו.
Yeah. Zulo is their princely residence. From their princely residence, their form, salam, will be consumed and go down to Sheol. This word form is the same thing as in Psalm 138. God formed us, knit us, right, in the womb, right? But their form has become one which is totally transitory and destined to Sheol. So it's a rather grim picture we have until suddenly this verse 16, which is sunlight in the middle of this whole poem. And so it's worth listening to it. Listen to both parts.
אך אלוהים יפדה נפשי מיד שאול.
Okay. So here is their second ach. The first ach was brother, but the second ach is alone, and he alone. We have a psalm. I think it's Psalm 60. I'm not sure. 63 or 60, which has about 4 times. Alone, alone. I will dwell with God in silence, right? Alone, Elohim, will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol. Okay. I can count on no one else, but I do count on Elohim. And he will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol. What does that mean? So I read a commentator for this psalm saying, at the time that this psalm was written, there was not faith in the resurrection. And so it can only be something that that's rather vague and what to say. And, it's not something so great as we, in the New Testament, look, especially in this time. Christ is risen from the dead and has brought us the full greatness of God's power. So, that can be an interpretation, but listen to the end of the verse.
כי ייקחני.
Truly, he will receive me. So that might sound really simple, but you can see on the right side, Yikacheni, when we find it. So we find it already in Psalm 6, verse 10. Hashem has heard my supplication. Hashem receives, Yikach, my prayer. So he receives me, he receives really my personal relationship with him. But much further, right? In Psalm 37, verse 37, truly there is posterity for the man of peace. There's not ikach here, but there's this later on, right? There's, well, we had posterity, we had in verse 14, right? This posterity is going to be a companionship for the man of peace. But then we get to the important verses. Psalm 73, verse 24. You guide me with your counsel, and you will receive me, tikaheni, to glory. And so, truly he will receive me, is very much parallel to this. He will receive me to glory. And this is the same receive is the key verb for Enoch in chapter 5 of Genesis. Enoch walked with the Lord, and he was not. Truly God received him. What does that mean? And then the ikak, which is most intense in the whole Old Testament, is in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 3. It's Elijah who's ready to leave his disciple Elisha. And in a few verses it's repeated 4 times. Right? The first verse you see here, today the Lord will receive me away. Will receive away your master from over you. Right? I announce you, Elisha, that Elijah is going to be received away, right? And we know a chariot of fire is going to take him up. And so that's what this receiving is. It's a very strong word. It's receiving what Enoch received, receiving what Elijah receives. And so I cannot agree with those who say there's no faith in resurrection in the Old Testament. Because if I ask you what is resurrection, do you know any better than Enoch, or do you know any better than Elijah what resurrection is? Even with all the New Testament? And that's precisely what happens at the Transfiguration. Jesus has Elijah with him because they understand each other. And Moses with him. Moses who was received in glory, right? The one who really manifests that in the Bible. So that's for Jesus. There's not this separation of Old Testament was a non-resurrection world, and the New Testament is resurrection world. I cannot agree with that, and I hope that I've convinced you. And so, this is what this verse 16, which is, we could say, a central verse at the center of this second part. Though we're going to change a little bit direction right after verse 16. But we have this extraordinary trust in God, which more than counters trust in human riches. And so we have then much more directly in the next verses the poet who's summoning the congregation to receive this instruction, to receive this mashal, this parable, this riddle, because it's a riddle. You wonder, why is it a riddle? Why is it a parable? Well, because we're in front of the unknown, with the limit of death, which is put also on, not only on beasts, but also on humans. And here there's something of faith in God which transcends, right? And it's a profound intuition, understanding of who God is, which we have in this psalm. So therefore, we go to verse 17. Let us listen.
סלע. אל תירא.
Oh yeah, we have Selah here, of course. Stop and listen to this extraordinary verse 16. Right? Elohim alone will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol. Truly he will receive me. We should repeat that day and night, this verse. And that's what this psalm is inviting us. That's where we put our hope. That's where we can really convert in our lives. And what I find so powerful in our study of the Psalms is that the Psalms give us words which go beyond our understanding. We enter through them into an intuition, into a mystery, a wisdom which is beyond us. And this is what faith is. It's entering into wisdom which is beyond us. So what do we have here? After the Selah. So I hope it's the second time where you're going to make a stop and meditate on what is said. But then comes, O congregation, receive the lessons of life. That's basically the title of 17 to 21. So it starts like this.
כי עשיר איש.
Okay. So you didn't hear it well. I don't think I can. It's too complicated to get it back. Let me try and get it. Yes.
אך אלוהים יפדה נפשי מיד שאול, כי ייקחני סלע.
Okay. This is the great verse. And then here. Al
תירא, כי
tira. Do not fear. So second, do not enter this fear which disorients your reverence to God, by which you can say verse 16.
כי עשיר איש, כי ירבה כבוד ביתו.
Okay. Truly man gets rich, truly the glory of his house swells, right? Becomes more and more abundant. That's, man is, do not fear. That's what man is over and over doing. And I can speak for myself, right? But verse 18 corrects what are we to think of it.
כי לא במותו ייקח הכל.
Okay, but truly, right? Not in death is he going to carry all this. And here it's carry. He's not going to receive. It's the ikach, which we have. Receive me, God. He will receive me. And in death, I will be receiving nothing. That's the idea. I don't know how to get a better translation of this line, but it's the opposite of God will receive me. It's death is going to receive my nothingness.
לא ירד אחריו כבודו.
Lo yireh, it does not descend after him his glory, kevodu. And man usually lives in such contradiction. Verse 19.
כי נפשו בחייו יברך.
Truly, while he lives, he blesses his soul. But you have another call after everything I've been teaching in this psalm. So let's continue verse 19.
ויודוך כי תיטיב לך.
Okay, so Yuducha, for your part, you will be praised if you do what is tov, what is good, what is truly good. And true praise, right, comes from doing for yourself, right? Because there's the for yourself here in Hebrew. Right? What is truly good. And Yuduka ki titiv lach. You do good for your true good. You do true good for yourself. That is the source of real praise. And verse 20 and 21, we go back to the foolishness of man, who's usually completely unaware of the value of doing good for himself.
תבוא עד דור אבותיו, עד...
Okay, you shall go to the generation of his fathers.
נצח לא יראו אור. אדם בעיקר...
And see that for unending times they see no light. You're going to recognize that humanity in its waywardness, right, is going to be for unending times they see no light. In other words, if you look at what's being said here, is that there's this individual cry of faith. Elohim alone will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol, which is irreplaceable. Right? Truly, He will receive me. And when I fall into the general condition of fallen Adam, right, I am falling into unendingly being in no light. And verse 21 is almost an exact copy, right, of the earlier verse which ended in verse 13, right? Verse 13 and verse 21 are almost the same, except one difference, and we're going to look at that. So let's listen to our last verse, 21.
ולא יבין, נמשל כבהמות נדמו.
Okay. So Adam, in his preciousness, will not understand. It's yavin. In verse 13, it's yalin, and will not pass the night. Adam in his preciousness will not pass the night. That's his existential condition, right? But now that the lesson has been given, right, we see that his existential condition comes because he doesn't understand. Lavin. Adam in his preciousness will not understand. His story fits parables on beasts that cease to be. He can be assimilated with the stories of death with respect to beasts. There is death of those who do not have an eternal soul. So here we've gone through our Psalm 49. So it's a very simple psalm in its theme, which is repeated over and over. But this is an extraordinary highlight which I would name, right, faith in the resurrection. It's in the midst of human values, there exists, says this psalm, faith in resurrection, which comes with my personal relation of faith with God. Elohim alone will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol. Truly he will receive me. Selah, meditate this. So here we are, and we still have a couple minutes. I don't know if there are any comments as we get back on track on our study of Psalms, and we will look. Are there any comments on? Yes, here in the assistance right with me, there's one comment. Yes, so I will repeat what. Yes.
Who is they in verse 11, the second line? They.
Oh, in verse 11, they perish. Who is the they? So it's there's this play of words in between plural and singular in this psalm. At times, he addresses the congregation as with the singular, and at times he uses the they for the multiplicity forming the congregation. And so this is what, but the they in verse 11, right, is it's the wise men die, and the wise men perish united to the fool and the brutish. That would be the translation that the Hebrew gives in verse 11.
I'd like to,
Yes.
Father,
Yes.
the comment, the world pulls all men and women from being upright
Yes.
to being in their own. Eventually, they are consummated by their own praise. That's very powerful.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, we have two very positive verses in this psalm. It's verse 16, which is this cry of faith in the resurrection, basically. And the second part of verse 19, right? But you, for your part, will be praised if you do for yourself what is truly good. And in other words, there's a simplicity on what the way of salvation is, which this psalm spells out. Now, since we have just 2 minutes, is there any other comment which I just want to give you a surprise, at least we're going to see that we're here in the first group of of psalms in the second psalter, right? And we're going to see how they correspond to each other. And this psalm has the most difficult correspondence, because it corresponds to, in Hebrew, Psalm 45, which is the psalm where we have the bridegroom, the most beautiful among the sons of men, and the queen, right, who holds everything in her interior. So, on one hand, we have that it's the two psalms that express in two completely different ways the transcendent gift of God. The transcendent gift of God, we can say for ourselves in Psalm 45, it's the gift of Christ and his mother. And here, the transcendent gift of God is one which is in this personal faith in the resurrection. And so these two psalms echo one another, right? Two approaches where we receive in a unique way transcendent intervention into the lives of the fallen Adam, so that which changes completely the destiny of humanity. And so I think that's what this parallelism enlightens in this psalm, right? Is that you need personal faith in God, and that completely transforms not only your own destiny, but your own communion with other men. It brings us into a new dynamic, which is a transcendent one. Okay, so let's...
Thank you, Father.
Yes. So I'm so happy to see you and to hear you again. And we're going to continue. We have the two last psalms that are left of this first group. And this first group is going to finish with the Miserere, which we'll see in 2 weeks. But next week will be, if you want to prepare Psalm 50, and yes, I've been advised to ask you to prepare your psalms so as to appreciate the teachings. So how to prepare? Read the psalm in the translation which you're most used to. But then, when you read a psalm, and this is for all psalms, but you can practice this Psalm 50, choose one line that speaks to your heart, and make of that line a refrain. You know, for example, if we take tonight, truly he will receive me. Or truly Elohim receive. Well, that's that line. Well, I can read one verse at a time, and then I repeat the refrain each time. Truly he will receive me. Truly he will receive me. And I enter into into appreciating the connection of thoughts of the poet, and I think that's a very good way. And also, the line which you choose will allow it to be a line of special interest to see, well, what translations come out next week of that line, and how is it going to be presented. I think this can enrich a lot your study of Psalms. And it's something very simple. Right? There is, take a refrain in the Psalm, and as often as possible, as you read the Psalm, stop and repeat the refrain. And it gives you a color in which to read each verse. Okay, now I will bless you with the beautiful words of tonight. So hear this, all you nations. Give ear, right? Elohim alone will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol. Truly he will receive me. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Christ is risen. He is truly risen.
Indeed he has.
Okay.
Amen.
God bless you all.